Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Israeli military claims to have killed dozens of Hamas fighters in North Gaza's Shujaiya as it conducts raids backed by airstrikes in North Gaza. Russia warns NATO of a direct clash, saying it has seen an increase in US drone flights over the Black Sea. Moscow vows to respond. US President Joe Biden stumbles in a 90-minute showdown against rival Donald Trump as the former president avoids key questions in the first presidential debate ahead of the November election. Iranians vote for a new president following the death of Ebrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash amid frustration among citizens over economy and growing pressure from the West. And Japan and the Philippines gear up for high-level defense security talks as the two countries seek to boost ties amid increasing confrontations with China. Hello and welcome. Our top focus today is on South Africa. Just days after the country saw the formation of an unusual unity government, cracks are now out in the open among the main coalition partners. African National Congress, or the ANC, and the Democratic Alliance, the DA. As per reports, the deal between the two largest parties is all but over. The two parties have been at loggerheads over the cabinet ranks, and talks between them on cabinet formation are now stalled amid a lack of consensus. The two sides have exchanged a flurry of letters, which have now been leaked and reveal the heightened disagreements. In one of the letters shared on the 25th of June, South African President and ANC Chief Cyril Ramaphosa accused the DA leader John Steenhuisen of moving the goalpost and trying to create a parallel government in breach of the Constitution. Not just this, he said that he found another letter from DA Federal Council Chair Helen Zille offensive, condescending, and inconsistent with the Constitution. In this letter, the DA had demanded at least 12 ministerial posts. However, after ironing out differences, the ANC resolved to give the DA only 6 ministers. These include Home Affairs, Basic Education, Public Works and Infrastructure, Communications and Digital Technologies. Forest and Fisheries, as well as Trade and Industry, were also on the list for the DA. However, it later revised the offer and replaced the key Trade and Industry Ministry with the tourism industry. Now, DA leaders were unhappy with the decision. They then wrote to Ramaphosa and asked for 2 more ministers, and this demand has reportedly infuriated President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has now warned the DA to conclude all the talks on cabinet ranks by this week. The rift is being anxiously watched by financial market traders. South African markets slumped earlier today with the news of the deepening rift. ANC-DA coalition has been seen as more of a business-friendly, and investors anticipated the acceleration of economic reforms with their collaboration. However, that now seems to be in jeopardy. After the 29th of May elections, the ANC for the very first time lost its parliamentary majority in 3 decades. It won just 40% of the vote share, while the DA managed to win around 22%. The Nelson Mandela Party, which fought apartheid in South Africa, was forced to form a government of national unity with its main rival, the DA, and several other smaller parties. However, the centre-right DA is known for being a party of white privilege, and such a coalition has not been supported by the traditional ANC base. Rift and delays on cabinet formation were anticipated by analysts for such a government. However, if the deal collapses altogether, it could take South Africa to an unprecedented era of political uncertainty and instability. Now, for more on this, we have with us political commentator Ayanda Sishiwigzel, who is joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Hello to you, Ayanda.
Hello, Alyson, and hello to all of the Firstpost viewers.
Ayanda, Ramaphosa has accused the DA leader John Steenhuisen of trying to form a parallel government and of jeopardizing the formation of the Government of National Unity. What do you make of these comments?
I think that the president of the country is right on the money on saying that the Democratic Alliance is trying to gain power through governing, even though they have not been given the mandate to do so. So you rightly pointed out that no one political party got majority in this election, which means that we need to get into a government of national unity. A government of national unity means that no outright political party gets to have most of the most powerful positions in cabinet. So political parties need to come together, come to the table, and form a coalition, a national government of national unity in order to work together. And that means that no one political party can get the most powerful positions. It has to be spread amongst everybody. So I am failing to understand why it is that the Democratic Alliance is leading their negotiation strategy in this manner. It shows that their electorate really is in trouble, because right now it shows that their political party is vying for power in government instead of working with the government, or working to form a government rather. And it is really harrowing to see the audacious way in which these negotiations have been taking place, because they are nothing short of just a power grab from one political organization. And it is really disappointing to see such happening.
Right. And exploring the potential tensions between parties, especially given the ideological differences, we have seen these cracks beginning to show in this very newly formed NGU already. What is your view of the latest tussle over the cabinet ranks?
Look, this is not our first rodeo. When it comes to a government of national unity, we did this in 1994 in the advent of our democracy. And now we need to do it again. And I think political parties need to realize that the electorate is the ones that they need to put forward first, and not their own political gains. We have seen this play out in local government in 2016 and again in 2021. With the roller coaster of mayors that were changing in the three biggest metros in this country, namely Nelson Mandela Bay, Johannesburg, Tshwane, and the city of Ekurhuleni as well. We saw a merry-go-round of mayors changing because no one political party could actually stay and agree to anything that they'd signed to within those coalitions, which resulted in an unstable local government. And now I would think that these political parties who have been governing in local municipalities within a coalition would have learned these lessons that they learned in local government, so that when they come to national government, especially when it comes to negotiating for positions, that they will not do and repeat the same mistakes that they had done previously within the local elections, within the local governments and the local municipalities. But now we are seeing that play out again. People are not negotiating in good faith. We see letters being leaked, things are coming to the public incomplete. So there's misinformation and disinformation that is coming out about the negotiations. We see that there is a power grab that is happening in this tussle between cabinet positions. Really shows the electorate, not necessarily the people who are in government and those who are in power. But what it shows is that the electorate was correct in actually not giving one political party majority power, because now what this election has done is unmask and show the real face of who these political parties really are. So it's not about the electorate, it's not about the people, it's about whether or not my political party can attain the position of minister, the deputy minister, and of the deputy director general and the director general positions, which is really cadre deployment, which is also really hypocritical, because the Democratic Alliance took the African National Congress to court, all the way to the Constitutional Court, for cadre deployment, but in the same vein turn around and write in a letter that they expect cadre deployment, they expect to practice rather cadre deployment, and that the president needs to sign off on this. It really is just shocking, a shocking state of affairs.
Right, and just quickly, Ramaphosa has called on the DA to conclude the cabinet ranks this week. What is the likelihood of this deadline being reached and achieved, and where to from here?
The deadline has to be reached, whether the Democratic Alliance, the ANC, or the different members within the GNU like it or not. The business of government and has to start. The National Assembly has to start. The work needs to begin. I think that negotiations will conclude this week, although I will not be held to ransom for that, because I've previously said that things will happen, and now they haven't, because we are living in unprecedented times. And so this has never happened before. We've never waited this long for a president to form a cabinet. Even here in the province of Gauteng, we currently do not have a cabinet as we speak right now. Our president, our premier, Andre Panyaza Lesufi, has not formed a cabinet, and I think it is because of the fighting. The negotiations and the infighting that must be happening between the GNU partners, which is the reason why there has been this delay. So I can't really say when it is that is going to happen, but should this delay continue, we will be indeed entering into unprecedented times, where I think now the law is going to have to step into place. We don't know what it is that is going to happen, because again, this has never really happened in the history of our democracy. So it's going to be very interesting times that we are heading into, if these political parties can't do the right thing and put their egos to the side and actually put the people of South Africa first, and making sure that they start getting into the work of the 7th administration. It really has to happen as quickly as humanly possible, because really we are waiting for the work of government to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, great to have you with us on Firstpost Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's shift focus to Kenya now, where protests against President William Ruto show no signs of dying down. Kenya's capital city, Nairobi, continues to remain on edge. On Thursday, clashes erupted once again between the Kenyan police and protesters. The police hurled tear gas to break up the protesters who continued to gather, despite President Ruto's decision to withdraw the controversial finance bill. Military has also been patrolling the streets of Nairobi. There were demonstrations also in Mombasa, Kisumu, Migori, and other major towns. Protesters say they still don't trust Ruto.
We are here because we are demonstrating, because how this guy has taken everything away from us. Now we have nothing to live for sure. So right now we have nothing to lose but our fear. We'll do it until the president steps down. We'll do it until the president steps down.
We want him to resign, and all the MPs that supported the finance bill must go home, and we don't want those MPs to make any public appearance. Those MPs must disappear from Kenya. We don't want to see them. Also, Ruto must resign. Ruto must resign, and he goes home.
The bill that proposed tax hikes had drawn fierce criticism from the start. But why did the government introduce the bill in the first place? It is because the Kenyan government wanted to raise $2.7 billion in additional taxes. This was to reduce the budget deficit and borrowing. Kenya's public debt stands at a staggering 68% of its GDP, higher than the 55% mark recommended by the World Bank and the IMF. The government said the measures were necessary to reduce national debt and essential to keeping the government running. Despite the bill being withdrawn, people are still angry with the government. They say the government's measures are punitive. They are demanding President Ruto to step down and the government to cut down on its extravagance instead of punishing people. They also are angry at the Ruto government for ignoring their concerns. So, will William Ruto be caught between meeting their demands and the lenders, urging the government to cut deficits and get more funding, and a population burdened under a worsening cost of living crisis? Now, what were the proposed measures under this bill? It irked the Kenyan population. Let me break it down for you. It was meant to raise or introduce taxes or fees on a range of daily items and services. A 16% VAT on bread, cooking oil, diapers and sanitary pads, internet data, mobile phones, cameras and recording equipment, fuel, bank transfers, a yearly 2.5% tax on car ownership, and even taxes on cancer treatments. These were on the initial list. After peaceful protests by thousands, the government was forced to roll back on some of these taxes, including those on bread, cooking oil, car ownership and bank transfers. But many of the contentious ones remained, so the protests escalated. Now, the chaos continued even after President Ruto said he won't sign the bill into law. So what's next? Now the bill will return to Parliament with the recommendation that all of its clauses be deleted. The Ruto government says it will now work on austerity measures and would begin with cuts to the presidency's own budget. The government says that it will focus on operational expenditure, including travel, vehicle purchases and renovation. Now, global ratings agencies say that after the withdrawal of the planned tax hikes, Kenya is unlikely to achieve its fiscal targets. So an end to problems for William Ruto and the people of Kenya are certainly not in sight. In southern Africa, the rift between neighbors Zimbabwe and Zambia is widening, but there seems to be a bigger geopolitical battle at play. Zimbabwe has been raising an alarm over the West's increasing support to its neighbor Zambia. Harare even claims that the United States is setting up a military base in Zambia and wants to move the United States African Command, or the AFRICOM, to Zambia from Germany. Zimbabwe also says there is a substantial amount of American military equipment at Zambia's airports. Earlier this month, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa rushed to Russian President Putin with these concerns. Speaking to Putin, he reportedly accused the U.S. of militarizing Zambia to consolidate power in the region and isolate Zimbabwe. He said the West continues to peruse the hegemonic tendencies that blatantly violate the sovereign equality of nations, justice and fairness. Now, he even slammed the West for abandoning Zimbabwe in favor of Zambia. Now, the United States has rubbished Zimbabwe's claims. Washington has denied setting up a military base in Zambia. The U.S. said it has no bases in Zambia and has no plans to expand its footprint there. Zambia, too, has denied the Zimbabwean reports. The Zambian president said the country has exchanged programs with multiple countries, including the U.S., which should not be mistaken for the U.S. establishing a base. Zambia says it has called on the African Union and the SADC to mediate the talks with Zimbabwe. Historically, Zimbabwe and Zambia had strong ties that were largely built on shared history and mutual support, especially during Harare's fight for independence. However, these relations began to deteriorate after Zambian President Hichilema took office in 2021. Now, President Hichilema also has close ties with Zimbabwe's opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa, which has led to diplomatic friction between the two neighbors. Zimbabwe's political landscape has remained volatile. The ruling party, the ZANU-PF, which has been in power since the country's independence, faces allegations of corruption, rights abuses, and election rigging. So the administration has been facing increasing pressure from the West, and has sparked fears of an orchestrated regime change. President Mnangagwa accuses the US of undermining his rule. So, as the US consolidates its influence in Zambia, Zimbabwe is turning to Russia for support, and the Zimbabwe president wants Vladimir Putin to counterbalance the Western influence. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid reports of coups and crises that dominate the headlines from the continent, we get you positive stories that often get overlooked. Our report today is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The country has seen decades-long violence, which has displaced millions. Children in the country have been stripped of opportunities. Most of them have only seen violence growing up. But amidst all of the gloom, some have learned to escape the situation with the game of chess. More details in our next report.
From wars to conflicts to pandemic and to climate disasters, we're living in times of great uncertainty. There are billions across the world who are caught in the line of fire. But the ones who are affected the most are children. The future generation is bearing the brunt of the world's ills. Millions of children across the world are affected by conflicts, with their dreams shattered and opportunities snatched. For children in the Democratic Republic of Congo, life is no different. The resource-rich Central African nation has been embroiled in decades-long armed conflict. It has pushed the country into one of the worst humanitarian disasters of the world. Millions have been forced to flee homes and have sought shelter in refugee camps. Life in these refugee camps is tough to say the least. There's little food. Water and electricity are luxuries. In one such refugee camp in eastern Congo, children, who have known little but conflict, have found their peace of mind in simple chessboards. A program called Chess in the City, seeking to shape the young minds positively. Once a week, the displaced children living at the Focus Congo camp in Kibati learn the strategic board game from players of a chess club from the nearby city of Goma.
We have been suffering war and violence for over 3 decades now. I myself was born into war and violence. So, for us adults, it's somewhat possible to cope. But for young people, we want to break this infernal cycle of violence. Because when a young person grows up and lives in a state of displacement, they will soon spend more than 2 years in these camps. Their intelligence will focus more directly on the war. So we want to break that. We want to break this infernal cycle.
24-year Akili Bashij Luenda is the founder of the initiative. He aims to use the cerebral game to provide an outlet and teach critical thinking to children traumatized by decades of violence. He says the game could help the youngsters make the right choice, which is peaceful and logical.
Firstly, by occupying their minds, because chess eliminates stress. It manages stress. It gives people the opportunity to find peaceful solutions to problems. So that's why we are much more interested in them, so that chess can bring peace, and so that they can rediscover themselves, rediscover logic.
The makeshift chess classes might not be the best. They lack basic equipment like tables and chairs. All they have is a basic board and a muddy floor to sit on. But this does not deter the enthusiasm and zeal among children. The focus and concentration seems to have taken them away from the worldly woes.
These children were scattered. They were playing dangerous games. But since we started this activity here, you can see for yourself how very, very concentrated they are. And we say to ourselves that if we had the means to look after them every week, we won't have children roaming around Focus Congo village begging. But here they are so interested, so concentrated, we tell ourselves it was worth it.
Camp runners say the chess program has been able to transform these young kids' lives. They are now building skills and moving away from violence. But the goal does not end here. The ultimate aim is to train these young players to compete in major tournaments, and also to represent Congo internationally.
We train them above all so that they can learn to compete in major competitions. Because we hope that from them we can find international masters. And what is the objective? You see a child, for example, who lives in the camps and who applies himself to the game of chess and finds the opportunity to leave the country to go and compete in tournaments abroad, he will discover the world and will discover that peace that exists outside the violence that we are experiencing.
DR Congo has endured 3 decades of war and violence. But this refugee camp has become a beacon of hope and resilience. It has given these children the will to fight against the odds, alter even the direst of circumstances. From being pawns of violence, they dream of being knights who can transform the future of their country.
And that's it for this Friday edition of the show. We will see you again on Monday at the same time. Thank you for watching.